What happens when a network gives a filmmaker total freedom and he uses it to turn a crime show into a slow-burning obsession? Out of real Chicago cases and a creator fresh off a massive hit, a new series was developed. One that refused neat endings, ignored weekly formulas, and treated television like a long novel. So how did a crime show with so much promise end up getting cancelled after 2 seasons? Let's find out. This is the history of Crime Story. After Miami Vice became a huge hit, NBC basically told Michael Mann to go and make whatever show he wanted next. So Mann then teamed up with Chuck Adamson, a real Chicago detective, and Gustav Reininger, who had written a crime script rooted in Chicago's organized crime. Adamson brought first-hand police experience. Reininger took it further and met real mob-connected figures through Chicago contacts while researching the material. Together, they created Crime Story. The long-term plan of the show was really ambitious. Mann wanted the story to move across decades, tracking how crime, law enforcement, and America changed over the years. That vision would eventually collide with budgets and scheduling, but at concept stage, Crime Story was designed to play the long game and never apologize for it. The story would eventually be set in early 60s Chicago and centered on a single obsession: Lieutenant Mike Torello, head of major crimes, versus Ray Luca, a small-time hood climbing fast. Torello wanted to stop Luca from becoming something bigger. On the other hand, Luca didn't want just survival, he wanted expansion. This conflict would drive the series forward. With the concept in place, next was the casting. Michael Mann didn't approach this in the traditional television casting way. His approach was going straight to Dennis Farina. At the time, Farina was a relatively unknown actor. He was a former Chicago police officer with little acting experience. Mann had already given him a small role in the movie Thief, and he insisted that he get the part. On the other side was Anthony Denison, who played Ray Luca, the mobster who evolved into an ambitious crime boss. The supporting cast leaned heavily towards realism. John Santucci, who played Paulie Taglia, was a real-life jewel thief who had previously been arrested by Farina and Adamson. The vault-cracking scene in the pilot episode was actually based on a burglary that Santucci had committed years earlier. Other supporting cast included Stephen Lang, who played David Abrams, Bill Smitrovich, who played Danny Krycek, Torello's right-hand man, and Darlan Flugel, who played Julie Torello. The series also became a showcase for early appearances by actors who would later become well-known. A young David Caruso appeared in the pilot episode. Other episodes featured early roles by Julia Roberts, Ving Rhames, Kevin Spacey, Ted Levine, and Stanley Tucci. Now with the cast in place, next was creating a theme and score that blended with the show's identity. The opening theme was Runway by Del Shannon, a 1961 hit that instantly locked the series into the early 60s setting. Michael Mann didn't just license the song, he asked Shannon to re-record it specifically for the series. Beyond the theme, the show leaned heavily on period music, with tracks from the late 50s and early 60s used throughout the episodes. For the original score, Michael Mann hired Todd Rundgren, a rock musician best known for his solo work. He had never scored a TV series before, but was given the show's story outline and was asked to create music that could move the narrative as time advanced through the 60s.
Crime Story. Things were looking up.
I'm gonna be a father.
But Luca's vendetta could destroy Torello.
It goes down now!
From the start, Crime Story was fighting its own ambition. The series was very expensive to produce, with period cars, rebuilt streets, vintage interiors, wardrobes locked to a specific year, and constant location work pushed the costs really high. The schedule was also relentless. Episodes were shot back-to-back, often 2 episodes every 3 weeks. As the ratings slipped, NBC grew nervous about the heavy serialization. The network pushed for faster movement and more immediate payoff. Storylines that were meant to stretch were condensed. Events that were supposed to land slowly started arriving in quick succession. Because of this, writers left and others were brought in, and the show's tone shifted, especially as the show moved deeper into its second season. The promotion of the series also became part of it trying to survive. When the show was on the edge, Farina and several cast members traveled to promote it during a promotional break, something that studios don't ask actors at a stage when a series is facing cancellation. But the effort didn't reverse the ratings sliding, but it showed how much effort went into keeping the series alive. But things were not like this from the beginning. When the series first aired, the 2-hour pilot was actually released theatrically in select theaters, and then it aired in September '86, and it actually pulled in more than 30 million viewers. That was a monster debut, and it looked like Michael Mann had done it again. But then reality kicked in. Once the series settled into its weekly time slot, the audience dropped fast. NBC originally placed the show opposite Moonlighting, which at the time was one of the most popular shows on TV. But that didn't really help, so NBC tried to fix it. They moved the series to Friday nights after Miami Vice, hoping the audience would stick around. The ratings did improve slightly, but not enough for the network, because it still lost its time slot to the stronger competition, and by the end of its first season, the show ranked in the low 40s for the end of the year. Critics, on the other hand, were far more interesting. They consistently praised the ambition, the look, and the seriousness. They highlighted how different it felt from standard network crime shows. Some critics loved the dense storytelling and the atmosphere, while others respected the craft but felt emotionally distant from it. The structured storytelling, though, became a dividing line. Fans who committed to the story were locked in. They treated the season like a long movie that just kept going on. Casual viewers, though, they struggled. By the end of season 1, no one knew if the show would be renewed, so the writers chose to end the season with an extreme cliffhanger involving a huge explosion. It was designed to function both as an ending and a gamble. If the show was cancelled, it went out loudly. If it survived, the writers would deal with the fallout later. NBC actually renewed the series, but the ratings of season 2 were getting lower and lower. So NBC decided to cancel the show in May 1988. The show's fans reacted immediately though. NBC received letters asking for a TV movie or some kind of conclusion. Some viewers even wrote their own endings, but none of that mattered or moved the needle. The story simply just stopped.
Here we go, this is picture, guys. Quiet, please. Take your remarks.
After its cancellation, the show appeared occasionally on TV through reruns until season 1 was released on DVD in 2003. This was followed by season 2 in 2004. A complete series set followed a few years later in 2011. For fans who want to add the series to their collection, I've added a link in the description below, and there should be a card popping up on screen to help you check it out. Years after its cancellation, Crime Story never faded away. It actually left its own mark. Even during its original run, people inside the industry noticed what it was attempting: a fully serialized crime drama on network television. That structure didn't succeed in the ratings at the time, but it stuck in creative memory. Over time, the show became a reference point on how crime stories could be told on TV. Writers and critics later grouped it with other early serialized dramas as a precursor to the kind of long-form storytelling that would become normal years later. These influences can be seen in shows like Wise Guy, which leaned fully into extended undercover arcs, and The Sopranos, which carried forward the idea that criminal lives unfold over time and the consequences don't reset. The show's unresolved ending became part of the show's reputation. Instead of closure, it left a hard stop, which turned the series into a cult object rather than a finished franchise. That unfinished quality kept it alive in discussion, especially among viewers who discovered it later on home media. The careers it touched also kept moving. Farina went on to a long career playing authority figures shaped by the same credibility he brought to Torello. Many actors who appeared briefly on the show became major names later, turning Crime Story into a quiet, early checkpoint in a lot of filmographies. Today, the show sits in a specific space. It's not remembered as a massive hit. It's remembered, though, as a show that tried something early, paid for it at the time, and gained value later. Its reputation has grown steadily as audiences became more comfortable with the exact kind of storytelling that it was built around. And we're not done yet. Next time, we dive into another kind of series. Until then, why don't you check out our previous video on Martin? Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.